actually explain how Prabhupada brought me to Krishna consciousness, or how I came to Krishna consciousness. At least that was the request earlier today, because generally people are interested in that, and some of the devotees remarked they liked some of the interesting stories I told about Prabhupada last night, or yesterday afternoon, sorry. So, here we go. So, anyway, the reason I'm in Krishna consciousness, or I'm in the movement, I wouldn't say I'm in Krishna consciousness. That would be rather prideful to say that I'm in Krishna consciousness. So it's because of Prabhupada, and solely and wholly because of his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, and of course Prabhupada's associates and servants and everything like that. So, to tell the story of my life and how Prabhupada changed me, okay, I don't want to get too much into my false ego here. That actually, from the beginning of my life, I was looking for the absolute truth. Like, who is God? Where did he come from? Where do I go at the time of death? What's life all about? And to make a long story short, everywhere I went for answers, I was very disappointed, including reading the Bhagavad Gita. Not Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. But I read Bhagavad Gita, and I couldn't understand anything. Couldn't understand whether it was a book about war, whether it was a book about peace, whether it was a book about chanting Om, or whatever it was. I couldn't understand it because it wasn't Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So eventually, I ended up at the university thinking that I was going to discover the absolute truth through science. As many of you have attended the university studying engineering, I also attended the university electrical engineering. I also worked with nuclear energy too. I learned how to make an atom bomb, in case any of you are interested. I learned the techniques. Anyway, worked in, bubble chambers and everything like that when I went to the university. So, but I discovered that the scientists knew less than me about the absolute truth. This is before I came to Krishna consciousness, because at least I knew I didn't know. Everybody understands what that means? I knew I didn't know, they thought they knew, and the theories were changing all the time, as they still are. Still are theories of the universe, theories of the Big Bang, theories of the black hole in space, or invisible matter, invisible gravity, invisible energy, dark matter, like that. So anyway, it was all speculation, so I became very disappointed with science. So when I was finished with the university, I didn't want to be a scientist. And I didn't want to fit in with the rat race, what we call it. You know what rat race is?
Yes.
Rat race. My parents wanted me to be a rat in the rat race. So instead, I decided just to study more and try to figure out what the absolute truth was. And kept studying, and I was reading one book a day. My parents got very frustrated with me, even though we didn't have a need for money. They didn't need me to work to make money because we came from a rather wealthy family. We had our own airplanes and boats and everything like that. So I didn't join Krishna consciousness because I was looking for wealth. Join giving up everything, which was actually real austerity. As Balabhadra Prabhu can tell you, in the real early days of the movement, it was pretty austere. We all shared all the men shared the same clothes, not men and women, obviously. But all the men shared the same clothes, the same socks, and usually the socks did match from one day to the other. This is how austere it was in the beginning days. You just had a big bin and you picked the socks. Remember this?
Yeah.
And you got a white sock and a red sock, and that's all you got, Prabhu, to go on Sankirtan. And if your dhoti was too short, that's too bad, We didn't even have curtains, Yeah. We just had regular Western shirts, or t-shirts like that. Anyway, so getting back to how Prabhupada saved me. So basically, I decided to do something. My parents wanted me to get out of the house. I had to get out, do something. young man. So I decided to do something that was interesting. I drove a taxi. Now that may sound like real low class and everything, but at that time in America, there were all the other taxi drivers had at least master's degrees or PhDs. Because the mood in America at that particular time was, don't enter the rat race.
Yeah.
So what happened, this is actually very important, what happened is that we used to have these elaborate philosophical discussions with the taxi drivers. Don't try that now. Don't try that with your Uber driver or your Lyft driver or anything like that. You won't be able to do that. They're not very educated. But that time, I remember, just really educated people. So, driving a taxi, and one day, one of the taxi drivers said, I have a book for you. I said, all right, what's the book? And he said, it's called Krishna Book. Krishna Book? Familiar with that?
Yeah.
So he gave me this book, Krishna Book, to read. I said, all right, what's this book? Opened it up. This is a little unusual. A little blue boy stealing butter and feeding it to the monkeys, and the monkeys having so much they couldn't eat anymore. And so I didn't know what was going on. But however, that image of that little blue boy, I don't think you know who that little blue boy is. Do you?
Kind of.
Maybe someone couldn't breathe enough or something. No, it's Krishna. The image of that little blue boy was so cemented in my consciousness. So this is Prabhupada again. Because we know Brahmanda Brahmate Konda Bhagavan Jiv Guru Krishna Prasadi Vai Bhakti Lata Bij, that the living entity, and we're all living entities, they're wandering all over the different universes and getting different bodies and everything according to their karma. That's also interesting. Just a side note. Wander, what does it mean to wander? How can a spirit soul wander in matter? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Because when you talk about, most of you are scientists. So when you talk about the size of the spirit souls, what, 1/10,000 the tip of the hair? What is the dimension of a point in space? Anyone know? Any scientists know? What is the dimension? What is the size, of a point in space, a mathematical point in space? It has no size. I'm answering the question. It has no size. So when you take a pint or the point of the hair, the tip of the hair, and you do cross sections, you get to a mathematical point. Am I right? Those of you who are science students, mathematics students. So that means the soul has no material dimensions. That's interesting, isn't it? So how can the soul wander? I'm just posing a question here. How can the soul wander when it has no material dimensions? It's an interesting question, and I'll try to explain it using an analogy that some of you may be familiar with. Let's say you are playing a video game. I'll give you an example. Once upon a time, many years ago, I entered into this virtual world called Second Life. Anyone's heard of it before?
Yeah.
And there happened to be, actually 1 million people in the virtual world at the same time. And I actually even found a Hare Krishna temple in it. Isn't that amazing? And I flew into the virtual world because I had great powers, mystic powers in the virtual world. So flew went to the Hare Krishna temple, found some dhotis and saris for sale. They had their virtual dollars and everything. And I found one of my disciples there. He's a little short normally, Gopal. So he was there as a really tall guy. And I said, Gopal, is that you? So the point being, anyone's familiar with this theory called the simulation hypothesis?
Yeah.
simulation hypothesis, many scientists talk about this, that the soul is projected into this world through consciousness. Even today, I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and it was about, from chapter 13 in the Bhagavad Gita, how the super soul is everywhere. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, it's just like this reflections of the sun in different bodies of water. So in other words, the super soul is in the world, but not in the world simultaneously. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a Chincha Tattva philosophy. So the soul is not matter. The soul can't touch matter. So it's in the world through consciousness, through illusion. Because we think we're the body, therefore we're affected by the body. And even the Buddhists understand that. You know, the Four Noble Truths the Buddhists teach. Material world is suffering. We believe in the same things, those same things. Material world is suffering. Suffering is caused by what? Does anyone remember the second noble truth?
Desire.
Attachment. Second noble truth is that give up the attachment and suffering goes away. Because really, we're not connected with the body. The consciousness is connected with the body. Anyway, whatever. Consciousness is connected with the body. So, it's interesting. So getting back to the verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brahmanda Brahmate Kandavadivan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhakti Latabish. The soul is wandering through consciousness in different places and identifying with different mobile phones, identifying with different bodies. Now I'm attached to this body, next life attached to cockroach body, dog body, whatever. And so, but at one particular juncture, by the mercy of Krishna, Ramanda Brahmate Kundabad Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhakti Latabish, he comes in contact with a pure devotee who does what? Who implants something called the Bhakti Latabish, the seed of the creeper of devotion. And so that's really what happened to me. I was wandering, and then the seed was planted by Prabhupada's books. Amazing, isn't it? You know, we talk about how the books, Prabhupada actually said, in relationship to the books, when we distribute the books, the poison is entered, you know.
Yeah.
That which will poison their material life. So just by reading that little bit, that one chapter, not even understanding what was going on. I mean, how can an American understand little blue boys feeding butter to monkeys? It's completely inconceivable, isn't it? Little blue boys. So anyway, and I kept having dreams of a little blue boy feeding butter to monkeys. I thought, maybe I need to see a psychiatrist at this point. You know, it's just like little blue boy-itis or something like that. Anybody here a psychiatrist? No. They have this diagnostic manual called the DSM, actually 4 and 5. So anyway, so I was thinking, what's happening with me? Then one night another thing happened. I was listening to the radio, just trying to enjoy Balabhadra singing. No, it wasn't Balabhadra. Some music, you know, folk music or something on the radio. And all of a sudden they put this album on, it's called the Happening Album, of Prabhupada chanting Hare Krishna.
Wow.
This is like 1968. And I heard this, didn't know what it was. This is what's called Agyata Sukriti. Wow, Agyata Sukriti. Unknowing devotional service, getting again the Bhakti Latabish implanted in my heart. And so I became so entranced with hearing this Maha Mantra from Prabhupada's lips. Like Prabhupada said, the Maha Mantra must be heard from the lips of the pure devotee. That I stayed up all night to see if they were going to play it again. I took out my tape recorder. At that time, tape recorders were this big machine, reel to reel. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? It wasn't like, that was before cassettes, that was before MP3 players, before everything. And luckily we had electricity. And it was, I mean, even when I was young, the telephones you had to wind up to make a call. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Operator, who do you want to speak to? Right, that will take 5 hours. In India, of course, they had this thing called the lightning call. Anyone remember that? You trunk, but there's lightning. You pay extra for it. That means you get it within 3 hours instead of 3 weeks. And even when I was first in India, they had telegraphs. It was going t-t-t-t-t-t, Morse code. It was interesting. And at Srila Mayapur, I remember going there and picking up a telegram that was made for me. And it was handwritten down. Yeah, the old days. So basically, you know, I recorded it and I kept playing it over and over and over and over and over. And I just became enamored again. And I started to practice Krishna consciousness on my own without anybody else telling me how to practice Krishna consciousness. One day, and I mentioned part of this last night, one day I had an inkling to visit a temple. Big mistake. So we go to this one temple. Actually, I can describe who it was who preached heavy to me. It was not the Armandra you know. It was a godbrother of mine, who was a lawyer, a good friend of mine. And he preached heavy, telling me, reading from the Bhagavatam about the symptoms of the age of Kali, where the she-jackal is vomiting fire. Some of you may remember this. People are living underground, short as dwarfs, eating human flesh. And so I said, this is not for me. And of course the upshot was, you got to join right away or else that's going to happen to you. You know, you're basically going to shrink and eat human beings, even in this lifetime. So I thought, let me stay away from these people. These people are just another version of born-again Krishnas. Instead, born-again Krishnas. Basically the same thing. So, and I mentioned this last night, for about a year and a half, 2 years, I stayed away from the devotees, turned the opposite direction. So, fast forward, 2 years later, I'm living on a farm with some devotees practicing Krishna consciousness. Should I tell you this story? I mean, wow. It's an interesting story. Okay, so I heard that Prabhupada is coming. You know, Srila Prabhupada is coming down. Srila Prabhupada came to Gainesville, Florida in 1971, the summer of 1971. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And what happened is that when I heard this, Krishna in my heart, I didn't tell the whole story yesterday, but Krishna in my heart said, you got to join. And I said to Krishna in the heart, no. So I made a deal with Krishna. I didn't tell this story before. I said, Krishna, I'm going to go into, we had a jungle there, you know, real jungle with alligators and everything like that. So, and I thought, I'm going to walk into here at night, and if you get me out quickly, I'll join. See, you know, people make deals with God like that. You got to stick to your deals or else you're in trouble. So I said, so I wandered into the jungle and I started chanting. And then somehow or other I had this, I don't know if I should talk about this, it's a little prideful, but anyway, I had this vision of Lord Vishnu. And then about a minute later I walked out of the jungle, you know, just in the middle of, you know, dark, completely dark. And I said, Krishna, I have to join now. Why'd you do this to me? So I walked to the temple. Didn't walk, actually drove, because it was some distance away. Drove to the temple, told the temple president. The temple president at that time was Hridayananda Maharaj. And I said, can I join? You know, at that time we didn't have any screening procedures. And he says, you gotta get rid of all that hair. We mentioned this yesterday. And you got a chance. I said already chanting 16 rounds or chanting, and already vegetarian for a long time, and already, doing everything else. And so I walked to the temple, or went into the temple, became a devotee, and then waiting for Prabhupada to come. So Prabhupada comes, and the very presence of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, when he came to the temple, he arrived in Jacksonville, Florida. And the very presence of Srila Prabhupada was just like entering into the spiritual world. I forgot that I had a material body. I forgot whoever I was, and I was already in the spiritual world, just being in Prabhupada's presence. So Prabhupada walks in the temple. It's a very simple temple. It's a rented temple in downtown Gainesville, Florida. Prabhupada walks in the temple, offers a basin, gives a little lecture, and then we all go out, this is very interesting, to the Plaza of the Americas, which is the main plaza in the University of Florida there, and Prabhupada gives a lecture. But what he lectures about, this is so interesting. Most of us, if I was going to give a lecture in the Plaza of the Americas, I would talk about, students and professors, I just adjust the lecture accordingly. Prabhupada talked about the Purusha avatars. And there I was, fresh off the street. And Prabhupada is saying, first, there's the Mahavishnu. And he breathes out. And all the universes come out like bubbles from him and expand. And into each and every universe, he expands as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And then, into everyone's heart, he expands as Shirodaksha Vishnu. And I'm sitting there. Oh my God. What did I get myself into? And I'm thinking, all the students must think that we are crazy. Because generally, scientifically, you think the universe came from the Big Bang, everything expanded. But now, here's this four-handed person who breathes out, and his pores also come out, the universe has come out, and he expands. I said, ooh, this is really far out. Of course, later, it took me about 50 years to understand it. But anyways, no, I understand. But the way I understand all that now, it's interesting, talking about scientifically, Krishna could create the universe any way he wants. But he chooses to do things in interesting ways. Krishna could just lay back and have the universe just manifest itself automatically, because Krishna is aptakama. Isn't it? Whatever he wants happens. His energies are first-class servants. Isn't it? Krishna has these energies. His first-class servant means they do what the master wants without being asked. Second class does what the master wants, and he's asked, and he's happy about it. Third class does what the master wants, but he's very unhappy about it. Why did my Guru Maharaj ask me to do this? That's their, and 10th class, guess what? Doesn't do it. But Krishna's energies, they do what Krishna wants, just by Krishna wanting it. Krishna doesn't have to do anything. That, isn't it? Can you imagine how nice that would be if you didn't have to do anything and everything would happen automatically? The guitar would play automatically. You didn't have to work, the money would come automatically. What else? Everything automatic. You wanted a house, come and the house is there. That would be pretty nice. So many people think like that. Actually, there's this whole hippie philosophy that if you want something enough, the universe is going to serve you in that way. You've heard that before?
Yeah.
There was actually a movie about it called The Secret. So, anyway, so Krishna creates the universe that way. Why? Because he likes it. He does everything in such a cool way. Krishna kills Hiranyakashipu as Lord Nrsimha because he likes it. He doesn't have to take a form of half man, half lion to do it. he could just say, die, demons. Because he arranged for Hiranyakashipu to come down so he could like fighting with him. You know, chivalry, ghastliness, all these different indirect rasas. You know, you have the 5 direct rasas and the 7 indirect rasas. So Krishna, he's the enjoyer, he's the supreme enjoyer. So he creates the universe by going to sleep, having Lakshmi massage his feet, and okay, that's how he decides to do it. Who can question him? So, of course, that took some time for me to understand. But when Prabhupada said those things, I was just, oh my God, what's happening here? And so, but anyway, it was purifying. The point is, even if you don't understand what a pure devotee is saying, it purifies you. Like Prabhupada had the devotees sit and listen to him as he was preaching in Hindi and Bengali. When the devotees wanted to leave the room, Prabhupada said, no, you stay here, it's purifying. And the devotees think, wow, I can't understand a word he's saying. But sound vibration, bhavanti vritkarna vasayana kata, Joshana dasya pavarga vartmane shada ratir bhakti anukrameshati. That's Lord Kapilada's statement. Satam prasangan mama virya samparo bhavanti vritkarna vasayana kata. That when the pure devotee is there, and in the association of pure devotees, then from the ear to the heart, there's this rasayana, this very wonderful spiritual medicine, and one is progressing just by this hearing process, right? Shraddha, Ratir, Bhakti, Anukrameshati. From faith to taste, to bhakti, to love. Anukrameshati, they happen one after the other. So this is the miracle of transcendental sound vibration. And that's really how Prabhupada changed me, and Prabhupada changed everybody through this miracle of transcendental. You see, in the early days, in the 70s, 60s, 66, 67, Prabhupada just went out and chanted Tompkins Square Park, and people became affected. They didn't know they were dancing. They didn't know what was going on. You see the early videos from 26 2nd Avenue. These people are weird, isn't it? They're dancing around just like, what are they smoking? Right? But the sound vibration is really what we're talking about. So Prabhupada manifests his mercy through sound vibration. So anyway, so that was my initial encounter with Prabhupada. Also we went with Prabhupada on some preaching engagements. There's a transcription of that, the Transcendental broadcasts in Gainesville, Florida TV station. And we got a chance to chant on television with Prabhupada. You know, first day we met Prabhupada, and that night we had the opportunity to be with Prabhupada in his room, and Prabhupada was dressed just in a gamcha. It was very hot in the middle of the summer, and he was seated on the bed, his bed, and we had this wonderful darshan with the devotees with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada gave some of the devotees initiation at that time. That's when Amarendra got initiation. That's when Dharmadas got initiation. You know, Dharmadas got initiation. And another devotee, Bhagavat. Bhagavat. You know Bhagavat? Big Bhagavat. And it was interesting because they were all really, really new devotees. So Bhagavat, one of the devotees, Prabhupada gave him his beads, and he reached out with the left hand to get the beads. And Prabhupada said, no, right hand. Bhagavat almost had a heart attack at that time. But you see, we were all really, really, as we say, wet behind the ears. Really, really new devotees. But seeing Prabhupada seated on that bed, he had golden skin like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was glowing. Literally, he was effulgent. So it's like you hear the stories of how people in New York, they would see Prabhupada and say, that person is glowing. Prabhupada was glowing, literally, sitting on his bed. Even the imprints he left in the Vyasasan were glowing after Prabhupada gave class. Amazing. So anyway, so we had this wonderful experience with Prabhupada in his room, giving darshan. It was just a rented bed, which incidentally, very, very interestingly enough, the next day after Prabhupada left, my mother came to visit the temple. And she got a chance to sleep on, it was a rented bed. She slept on the same bed that Prabhupada slept. Because you're usually not supposed to use things the spiritual master used, but it was rented anyway. And so anyway, so then we take Prabhupada to the airport, but we were so enthusiastic to serve Prabhupada, we took the whole Vyasa-san to the airport too. And the Vyasa-san was as wide as this couch. And so we took it in we only had a van. We didn't have a truck. And so it stuck out into the other lane of traffic. It's our enthusiasm. You may have heard this story before. Oh, you never heard the story? You know, so you got the side doors of the van, so it was just sticking out, and we were driving down, and between Gainesville and Jacksonville, it's an hour and a half drive. Wow. So here we are. And it's country roads too, you know. So driving through the enthusiastic, so it took 5 or 6 men to lift this Vyasa-san. So we get out. At that time, that was before security at the airports.
Yeah.
So we get out of the car, or van, and there's 5 or 6 of us. I think I was one of them. Running through the halls of the airport with this gigantic Vyasa-san this wide, running after Prabhupada, because it was actually all Rita Nandamar's idea, because he didn't want Prabhupada sitting on an ordinary seat.
You bring a sofa.
So you bring the temple Vyasa-san, you know, it's just a sofa. And so we're running through, and Prabhupada looks at us like we've lost our minds. He said, "What are you doing?" And he sits down and regularly sends everybody back to take it to the van. In the meantime, we're all sitting around Prabhupada, chanting for Prabhupada. But Prabhupada, interestingly enough, was more interested in what another devotee was doing there, which was distributing his books. Prabhupada kept looking at him rather than us. We were just surrounded Prabhupada, you know, trying to enjoy the spiritual master rather than serve the spiritual master. That's another story that, well, I'll just mix stories anyway. The one time I was with Rita Maharaj, and I was a brahmachari at that time, traveling, this is later on, traveling around, and Prabhupada saw that we were following him around like a group of groupies. You know what groupies are? Groupies are the followers of a rock and roll band or a band that follows them all over the world. So we followed Prabhupada. You know, we went to New York, saw Prabhupada, then Prabhupada arrives in Los Angeles, and we're there also. And Prabhupada says, "Don't you understand? You're not supposed to enjoy the spiritual master. You're supposed to serve the spiritual master." You know, because it's just like, "Oh, Prabhupada," the whole time. And not doing anything for Prabhupada. Except for chanting. Like that. So anyway, so back to the circumstance in the airport. So we see Prabhupada off, and that was the first encounter with Prabhupada. And I mentioned, we were very fanatic. I was also fanatic in those days. The next day, my mother comes to the temple. She's worried that her poor son, who she spent so much money and time and energy and slave for, has now become a cult member. So she wants to see what's happening. She stays the night at the temple, attends the program, but then something else happens that really shocks her. This is really fanaticism. We're all sitting down taking prasadam the next morning. And in those days, we didn't have plates. We had pieces of wax paper. You remember that?
Yes.
You just tear it off with the wax paper roll, and you put it on the floor, and you put the doll there, and everything. I mean, it just runs all over the place. Is it? No cups, no steel, just wax paper. You know, if you want to keep your doll, you got to make You got to make a hole in the rice so the dough stays on it, right? I was just like, oh my God. And so, all right, we're eating that. That's bad enough. My mother's sitting on a chair at a table. She gets to eat like a gentleman or a gentlelady. The rest of us folks are eating on our wax paper, running all over the floor. So I make a big mistake. I'm fanatic, thinking this is Prashadam, this is wonderful. And even the water is wonderful as Prashadam. So this is the first thing I learned. And so by accident, I knock over the water, my glass of water. We had glasses, paper cups. And I was thinking, this is Prashadam, it doesn't belong on the floor. So I just got down on my hands and knees in front of my mother. I was slurping it off. This fanatic, new devotees, we always. And my mother's thinking, oh my God. Remember, it came from a wealthy family, silver utensils and everything like that. And there's her son slurping on the floor. Okay, so this is a side story, not precisely about Prabhupada. So she makes a plan later on to kidnap me. She consults with this kidnapper named Ted Patrick, a very famous deprogrammer. Fortunately, my brother talks her out of it. He says, he's happy, just let him be. He'll get better after some time. Because they don't understand what's happening. I also try to preach to them, which is a big mistake. I tell my father, it's like Prahlad talked to Hiranyakasipu. He was my role model. Like, Prahlad said to Hiranyakasipu, go to the forest. You're too attached, so you should head to the forest. It basically said that to my father. You're so attached to his business and whatever, eating and everything like that. And anyway, I preached very heavily to them. I said, you got to become vegetarian, you got to read Krishna book, you got to chant your rounds, Didn't work. Had the opposite effect. And so, I'll go a little fast forward, then we'll go back to more of the Prabhupada story. But later on, my parents became very favorable because I started to act normal in their eyes. When I visited them, I wouldn't talk about Krishna so much. And then my father became so favorable, both of them. Before my father passed away, he gave some major donations to the movement to help with some building projects. And my mother, we told the story earlier today, but not to everyone. My mother, because I brought her to Rath Yatra every year, New York. She was living in New York in the Upper East Side. So we take her to, Balabhadra met her too. And she would go to Rath Yatra, and she started bragging about her son, the sannyasi, her son, the guru. At least her son was prominent. I come from a Jewish family. So, the Jewish people, well, it's like in India, people from Gujarat are called the Jews of India, right? So you get the idea. I think you get the idea, So I came from a Gujarati family. So it's very similar type of dynamics. So, but my mother became very, very favorable. And in her final days in this world, she was 94 when she passed away. She had some memory loss. And one day I called her on the phone and she said, son, I am a Hare Krishna devotee. And she forgot about her past. Krishna does that. She forgot all about whatever she was in the past. Interesting. My father had passed away many, many years before that. And I said, Mom, I'm a Hare Krishna devotee too. And she said, really? I didn't know that. After all these years. So, but there's a happy ending because when she passed away, I was in a different place in the world. I couldn't come to see her at the final moments. But I had this one very, very nice devotee lady fly in to see her. She kicked the nurse out and said to the nurse, "You go rest." And she lay down next to my mother, chanted Hare Krishna, gave her some tulsi water and tulsi leaves and ganga jal. And within 10 minutes, my mother passed away hearing the holy names. So you see how, so it's really a fact that Krishna helps your relatives, like it's described. It's so many generations, past and future become benefited by your taking to Krishna consciousness. It's a fact. I mean, in the beginning, they didn't appreciate. And you find that a lot with, families in India, too. In the beginning, they're just thinking, what is my kid getting into? But in the end, they're benefited. And that was my personal experience about my father. My father, right before he passed away, he attributed all of his business success to me being a devotee. So, take it as it may. So anyway, getting back to the early days of the movement. So then I got a lot of chances to associate with Prabhupada in different locations. Of course, I mentioned how we were following Prabhupada from one part of the country to another, New York to Los Angeles. I would walk with Srila Prabhupada in morning walks. I would eat the dust from his feet because I was so fanatic, so enthusiastic. But this is actually good because the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that the foot dust from a pure devotee, the foot remnant, the prasadam remnants of the pure devotee, and the foot bathing water are three powerful substances. So I took advantage of that. When I would go on morning walks with Prabhupada, especially on the beach, I would take the sand from his footprints and throw it in my mouth, right behind him. And when I got the prasadam remnants from Prabhupada, there's one interesting story. I arranged for a reception for Prabhupada in Dallas, Texas. There's a video of this. And it was amazing. We had all the press there. I did all the pre-press work and, to have all the newspapers and television reporters. So they greeted Prabhupada just like a super dignitary in Dallas, Texas. So Prabhupada comes in, we had the VIP room. And so he sat there and gave darshan, this is recorded too, to all the reporters. And we gave Prabhupada a plate of prasadam. So we gave Prabhupada a plate of prasadam. Prabhupada ate a little bit of everything and then went to the temple. And I told the devotees, because I know how to be tricky, I told the devotees, I'll take care of cleaning it, don't worry. Cleaning the place. So all the devotees leave. And I know Prabhupada is going to go to his room, not give a lecture right away. So I just take this plate, eat everything, the grape stems, the orange rinds, and I would have eaten the plate itself had it not been made of metal. Everything, because I knew the power of Prabhupada's Mahaprasadam, like that. So then we go back to the Dallas temple, arranged for Prabhupada's preaching programs, because I was the main one doing publicity, going with Prabhupada on preaching programs at different TV stations. One time we went to a TV station, this is another interesting, little tidbits. These are stories. I know Shutakirti has more interesting stories, but anyway. So we went with Prabhupada to Fort Worth, Texas, which is some distance away, an hour away, hour and a half from Dallas, Texas, to a TV station, and I brought a whole plate of Prabhupada cookies with me. These sugar cookies. Prabhupada loves sugar. One time, one of the devotees asked Prabhupada, he said, I heard sugar is not good for you. And Prabhupada said, come here, bring your plate here. And the person had a chapati, so Prabhupada poured a whole mountain of sugar on top of his chapati. So I guess that answered that devotee's question. But Prabhupada loved sweet things, especially, we call them Prabhupada cookies, yes. Isn't it? Prabhupada cookies. Yeah, just flour, butter, sugar. And even the sweet balls, not the ISKCON bullets. Well, the ISKCON bullets were sugar too, because there was the glubjamins. Yeah, they were gloves. And then, but Prabhupada, the way Prabhupada made the glove juice was two parts sugar to 1 part water. That was Prabhupada's recipe. It's practically crystallized. Did you know that? Actually, I learned to cook the way Prabhupada cooked too. So anyway, there was 2 parts sugar, 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of water. And we were all so addicted to it that after the Sunday feast, we drink it for the breakfast. Do you remember that?
Of course, yeah.
The breakfast, Monday morning breakfast was something else, isn't it? Because Prabhupada kept saying, you should eat prasadam until it goes past your neck, So we literally accepted that. I remember many times just lying on my side, groaning. And then the devotees would give us this quote that Prabhupada had, that if you have indigestion, you're lying on your side, lie on your left side, not on your right side, because your right side has your liver, and your left side. So we'd all be lying on our left side. I overdosed on prasadam. That was the early days of the movement. I mean, it was amazing. So then, anyways, getting back to the story in Fort Worth. So we go to Fort Worth with Prabhupada. We go to the program, and I forget to give out the cookies. I was so enamored to be with Prabhupada, I just forget about everything else. Good program, good interview. So on the way back, I say, Prabhupada, I'm sorry, I forgot to give out the cookies, the prasadam, because Prabhupada always insisted about prasadam in every place. And Prabhupada's motion, give me some of them. So I passed the cookie to Prabhupada. Prabhupada thinks, okay, another one. Another one. And practically, I think it was 3/4 of the plate of cookies that Prabhupada ate. Because especially after preaching, Prabhupada ate, he had a real hunger after preaching. It was amazing. I mean, Prabhupada was really, because he was just like fired up. Even when in the final days when Prabhupada was very weak, physically weak, he'd start the lecture, you could see he was physically weak. But at the end of the lecture, it was like a lion there. You hear stories about this all the time. It's amazing. It's amazing when Prabhupada's spiritual energy for preaching, especially for preaching Krishna consciousness. Simply amazing. So, I mean, there's many other stories. Okay, it's 7:21. So, I'll just tell you, here's some story in Mayapur. I was with Prabhupada when he laid the cornerstone for the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium, which is actually in the place where it is now. Although the devotees wanted to put it in a different place, but because of legal considerations, they had to go back to the original place where Prabhupada laid the cornerstone. So every night, let's talk about the day first. So during the day, every day, in the morning program, Prabhupada would, as you all know, he would circumambulate the deities during the darshan time, and he would ring this bell. There's videos of this. And we'd all jump around Prabhupada, ringing the bell. Prabhupada, of course, before that, probably when I was morning walking, he timed it perfectly. He came back just in time for greeting the deities every morning. Prabhupada's timing was, Prabhupada always wore a watch. Nowadays, many people don't wear watches. I'm looking around. Because they say, I have a mobile phone, right? But Prabhupada always wore a watch. Bhakti Vinod Thakur always had a pocket watch. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur always worked, because punctuality, Krishna's time. So anyway, but every night, we would have these amazing darshans with Prabhupada. Amazing darshans. Sitting in Prabhupada's room in Sridham Mayapur. You can see Prabhupada's rooms now. And very crowded rooms. And just say a few things that happened. When we were in Mayapur, one time I was with devotees who went to purchase brass during the day in Navadvip. Some of you may have been in Navadvip. That's where they have all the brass wallows. So Brashana Laya. I think that's the Bengali for brass wallah or something like that. So anyway, so we went there, and this devotee was very immature. He said to the brass wallah, "My Guru Maharaj said you're a cheater." That's something you don't want to say in Bengal. I mean, I almost got killed in Bengal too from the Naxalites one time in a train. I was riding, I think it was in the baggage car in a train in Bengal, and there were Naxalites looking at my watch and talking to me, and I was, oh my God, you're Naxalites, the communists, fanatic communists. So he said this, and so I grabbed the devotee and we went away. So that night we're sitting in Prabhupada's room, nice darshan, and this storekeeper walks in. And he storms into the darshan, and he says, "Your disciple said that I was a cheater." So I'm just going, oh my God. It wasn't me, so I'm not going to get in trouble. And what is Prabhupada going to do? And Prabhupada basically just patted him on the head and said, "That's all right, please sit down." And the guy sat down. Now, I don't know if you know about Bengalis. They don't just sit down. I mean, even their loving relationships are pretty heavy. I mean, one of the temples I'm in charge of is New Orleans. And my room is right above the kitchen. So sometimes I'm hearing yelling, screaming, pots flying. I run down to the kitchen. I say, "Is everything all right?" "No, we're best friends." So, you know, Bengal, I was also there when the temple got attacked one time too. And we were surrounded by all the villagers, you know, with knives and everything. Like that wasn't the heavy attack, that was another time. No, that wasn't, that was a different attack. So, but Prabhupada was able to pacify him just by saying, "Sit down." The man became like a whatever, you know, like it's simple, like a deer or something like that, you know. "Yes, Prabhupada." So Prabhupada had this potency, he could pacify people. And sometimes he would really let people have it, like with a professor, you know, there was one professor, I think it was Sanskrit or something like that, he says, yeah, you know that story. Yeah, really, he just let him have it, like, what, you don't know anything or something like that? Something really heavy statement. Prabhupada knew time, place, expert judge of time, place, and circumstances. One of the 26 qualities of Vaishnava. One other story, because it can't go forever, we have to leave tomorrow. Sitting in Prabhupada's room, this is very interesting for his preaching too, because how important preaching was to Prabhupada. At that time, I was in charge of our temple in Caracas, Venezuela. I was temple president. And we were the #1 book distributors in the world. We had defeated Radha Damodar. You know Radha Damodar? Anyone's heard of the stories? And that's when Prabhupada said Radha Damodar does not like, Tamal Krishna does not like it to get defeated. So this is, you know, it was a wonderful occasion. But anyway, so we're in Prabhupada's room, sitting with Prabhupada. He's giving darshan. Darshan ends, I stay there to talk to Prabhupada a little bit. And a devotee next to me is explaining to Prabhupada how they've just built the Berkeley temple. And he's showing Prabhupada of all of these different carvings of, I guess, of lions, you know, it's a risen style, outside the Berkeley temple and this. And Prabhupada's nonchalantly saying, "Yes, very nice, very nice." And then he's finished. And I come to Prabhupada today. Said, "Prabhupada, we distributed something like 40,000 Bhagavad Gitas in 1 month in the city of Caracas, Venezuela. I mean, that's a lot in those days. Nowadays, of course, you got people much more powerful than us." So, Prabhupada's eyes opened wide. You know, he became, well, he's always ecstatic, but he became like, wow. And then I said to Prabhupada, this devotee, I brought one of our devotees with me. This devotee himself distributed 10,000 Gitas in 1 month. And Prabhupada, eyes open wider, and he says, he has the mercy of Krishna. And the rest of us, me, we were envious, to say the least. Because, I was a temple president, the big guy. I had arranged everything, organized, a good manager, good devotee, whatever. And Prabhupada I was thinking, what about me, Prabhupada? I was thinking that. Prabhupada heard what I was thinking, and he looked at me, the other devotee, he says, you all have the mercy of Krishna. And then he said, well, but it's just like the gopis, they have special mercy. So Prabhupada addressed my concerns, but at the end, he had his final say that, those who were going out and preaching Krishna consciousness, bringing other people to Krishna, and of course that's in line with what Krishna says in the Gita, there's no one more dear to me than he who teaches this Bhagavad Gita. And there'll never be one more dear to than that person who teaches Bhagavad Gita. So I have other stories, but I think that's all we have time for today. And so, but basically, to summarize it was Prabhupada, and it's Prabhupada who keeps me in the Krishna consciousness movement. So what I do in my own personal life is before I make any big decisions, not decisions like what am I going to eat tonight, that's a big decision. I actually internalize and ask Prabhupada, what should I do? What is more pleasing to you? So Prabhupada is very much internalized in terms of my decision-making process, in terms of my life. What should I do? Just like even coming here, I was thinking, should I come? Should I go here? Should I go there? Prioritize. And Prabhupada said, I can't say I'm channeling Prabhupada. That would be rather presumptuous. But I try to base my life, I'm not saying perfect at it, try to base my life on thinking, taking guidance from Prabhupada, knowing Prabhupada. So it's important for all of us to know Prabhupada. Like we find in the, Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam, Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamayam, Dadati Swapadantikam. Rupa Goswami is our Acharya, the Sampradaya Acharya, because Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam, he actually understood the intention of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We find a lot of the things that Rupa Goswami wrote are not directly things told to him by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he expanded on those things, carrying out the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so, therefore, he's considered our Sampradaya Acharya, because he understood the intention. He's a first-class servant. So my endeavor, and for all of us, it should be our endeavor to become first-class servants. Like we mentioned, all of Krishna's energies are first-class servants. And in this way, we can somehow or other be instrumental in helping to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Okay, any questions or comments? Prabhupada, job. I hope that was all right, not too self-centered too. Any questions or comments or problems? Yes.
Maharaj, when are you coming back?
Just now coming, as they say. Coming, I haven't left yet. Again? When Krishna wants.
Krishna told me to
What did Krishna tell you?
stay on the phone with you.
We'll say, Prabhupada kept insisting, you have him to blame. Thank or blame. Because Prabhupada was my old buddy. We've served together for many, many, many years in Krishna consciousness. So he kept insisting. The reason that you're registered as an ISKCON temple is because he insisted, and I had to listen to him. So we owe so much to Balabhadra Prabhu for everything he's done for this yatra. And so, I had no plans to come here. Because My intention in running my GBC zone is to work always through representatives and just, lazy intelligent.
First class.
Like Prabhupada said, first class intelligent is lazy intelligent. Second class is active intelligent. Third class is lazy stupid. And last class is active stupid. So at least if we're not so intelligent, we should be lazy. So, yeah. So is Balabhadra's, Balabhadra to blame for it. That, and I'm very happy to be here. I see all the nice devotees. I love it. My life is so blissful because I get to be with devotees. I get to chant Krishna's name. I mean, I can't think of a better life. I wouldn't do anything differently than I've done in my life right now. I might have dealt more kindly with my parents. That's one thing. But otherwise, my life, I mean, it's like I mentioned yesterday, it's so much fun that I think I might get arrested for it. Having so much fun serving Krishna. And all of us can have that fun too. Because we're just connected with Prabhupada. And then Krishna just takes your life over at that point. I mean, I didn't make long-term plans. I didn't know I was coming here till the day before I came here. I told Balabhadra, I said, I'm not sure. I'm supposed to give the Sunday feast in Nubaloka.
And I remember the pastime in Aligarh in India.
Yeah.
So we were traveling with Prabhupada from Delhi, Aligarh, Modinagar, Aligarh, Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So in Aligarh it was unplanned.
Yeah.
It's a big university. So they had an unplanned event for Prabhupada. No Vyasa-san on the stage. Prabhupada's coming in 1.5 hours.
What did they do?
Myself, 2 or 3 devotees, door to door. Somebody gave us a sofa just like this. So we were walking through the streets of Aligarh with this sofa.
Oh my God.
When Prabhupada came, he sat down on his sofa, gave his program.
And sometimes they didn't even have that in certain places. They had Prabhupada sit on a table with a cushion on it. That happened in certain places too. It was just a table, like in a classroom or something like that. Just put a table, put a cushion, Prabhupada would climb up, and it was quite dangerous actually for Prabhupada at his age to climb up like that on a table. But yeah, it was wild. They were wild times. We were like Prabhupada's monkey army, that's what Prabhupada called it, isn't it?
Yes.
Monkey army, like Lord Ramachandra's monkey army. But here we are. And we made a lot of mistakes, and Prabhupada was very kind to us. So, any other questions? Yes.
Maharaj, like you said, you're always having fun in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
Sometimes we become too mechanical. Simple things, offering food, arati, everything we are sometimes running on clock or doing things.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of
There's something called Niyam Agraha, which is mentioned in the Upadeshamrita, which means doing devotional service basically without thinking about the intention or putting yourself on, as we say in the airplane world, automatic pilot. I usually tell the story in this regard of how there were some pilots in America, they put the plane on automatic pilot, and they were talking about basketball games, and they overshot the place where they were supposed to land by 200 miles. And the government sent up fighter jets because they thought the plane had been hijacked. So they lost their jobs. So you can understand that. So we do that often. The challenge is in Krishna consciousness that we have repetitive activities. That, I mean, obviously something like RT is repetitive. You offer incense, you offer the flame, and then the pancha with the water, and every day it's the same thing. It's not that one day you offer something different. One day you offer, let's say, a mobile phone to Krishna instead of insulin. It's repetitive, and it's a danger, I think, with all religions where you have rituals. Nothing wrong with rituals. I mean, nothing wrong with rituals. And it starts in the day, like even getting ready in the morning, even putting on the tilak. Sometimes we just slap it on. Slap it on. They even have the tilak stamps. So you just go, boom, boom. Okay. But so there is that tendency with repetitive activities, and it's like sometimes people drive in a car. It's an interesting phenomena that I experience, and I'm sure everyone experiences. When you drive a car the same route every day, sometimes it's not dangerous, but sometimes you don't remember how you got to your destination. You're just there. Because you're used to the turns, right turn, left turn, everything like that. And so it's like that in some aspects of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, what I do, you're asking for a solution, is, well, first of all, when I first wake up in the morning, I start chanting. Whether it's brushing the teeth, shower, whatever, I just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And that helps me remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. So in Krishna consciousness, or in life in general, we have to always be aware of the why factor. Because not only does the ritualistic consciousness affect our Krishna consciousness, it affects our personal relationships too. Whether one's dealing with their husband, wife, children, or anything like that, it's just like every day it's the same thing, And so, but we're meant to be doing something for Krishna with devotion. Yome bhakta prayachati. Not just simply doing what he wants. According to Rupa Goswami, Anyami Lashanta Shunya, etc., we're supposed to serve Krishna the way he wants, actively and with a sense of devotion. So we have to always be drawing our minds back to the point of, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the purpose of this? Purpose, of course, to please Krishna, hopefully, but the why factor. Enthusiasm comes from the why factor, not the what factor, how factor, where factor. It comes from, why am I doing this? So I try to draw it back, with Prabhupada again. I'm doing this to please Prabhupada. I'm doing this to, because the other things make me happy too, obviously. Doing this because I like to see the devotees come closer to Krishna. It's a little compassion I have after all these years. So it's just like, when I'm leading the kirtan, it makes me happy to see the devotees dance and be happy. So there's a why factor there. I'm not just leading because I like music, or because I like Balabhadra's playing, which I do. I'm leading because it really gives me joy to see that. So I always, not always, but whenever possible, I try to bring my mind to, why am I doing what I'm doing? The why factor. And keep pulling it back. And it takes time too, because after a while, we do get ritualistic in whatever we're doing. One of the biggest dangers, I think, in Krishna consciousness, apart from offending Vaishnavas, is losing touch, being on automatic pilot, like that. Especially deity worship can be like that. Not dressing the deities so much, because that you really have to be attentive to why. But the artis, or the Guru Puja, or chanting the same prayers every day, right? I mean, how many times when we're saying the pranam mantras to our spiritual master or to Prabhupada, are we thinking of the meaning of them? Not often. You just go, Mam, Vishnu Padai, Krishna Vastai, Budale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami, Namani Namaste. Do we actually think about what that means? No. Generally, I would say 99% of the time we don't think about what it means. Or, Guru Vashtaka, we chant the Guru Vashtaka. If you think of what it means, you become ecstatic. That samsara dhavanam, the whole material world's blazing fire for you. Well, here's the trick to you. Visualize. What I try to do is when I have these Sanskrit prayers, I visualize what they made. I see the whole material world is blazing fire. And the Guru is extinguishing the fire with his mercy, pouring down the water, the celestial, not celestial, the transcendental water to extinguish the fire. And then, the second verse, Mahaprabhu Kirtan, Richa Gita. When the pure devotee hears the Kirtan, Lord Chaitanya, this is ecstatic if you actually think about the meaning. He starts dancing and singing, and the tears come from his eyes like torrents of rain, and hair what stands on end, right? That's pretty ecstatic. So when I'm remembering things, I can't say I'm perfect at it, but when I'm really in tune, then I'm actually thinking about what those things mean, and I'm visualizing and connecting with them. And that devotional service becomes really ecstatic, especially chanting the holy names. It's not just the rhythm or the tune, it's the connection with Krishna. Krishna's there. Namachintamani, Krishna's Krishna's there in his holy name. And it's just like, wow. Well, I'm so fortunate I get to do this, to connect with Krishna. I'm so fortunate I get to sit here and talk about Krishna a little bit. It's just like, wow, what did I do to deserve it? So, anyway, these are certain hints. It takes practice. But that's the only way to become really happy in devotional service, to connect like that, because it has to be with your mind, your body, and your words, not just with your body. Just with your body is incomplete. Mind, body, words. All right? Yeah, figure out how to connect everything you do, whether it's waking in the morning, even brushing your teeth, or anything like that. You're always doing it for Krishna or for Vaishnavas, for your family members, like that. Everything becomes an offering of love at that point. That's bhakti. That's really what bhakti means. It's not karma yoga. It's bhakti yoga. Good question. Any other quick questions before? Yes.
Maharaj, you said all of you were fanatic. I sense that all the devotees in your time were so much innocent. They really did not care about the world etiquette.
Yeah.
I heard that Krishna loves innocent people. Is that true? And I think I wonder if Prabhupada loved all of you.
Prabhupada loved all of us, and he found it was all very humorous. And sometimes he got angry with us because we were so. I think innocent is one thing, naive is another thing. Especially in India, where devotees would get cheated all the time, Prabhupada would call us damn cheap babus. You know that? Because we were thinking we were getting a good deal. And then Prabhupada had to step in and try to get the money back. And that happened in America too, with the $5,000. Yeah, the $5,000. Prabhupada had to step in because we were naive. I mean, innocent is a sort of a different concept than naive. Prabhupada, in many cases, he looked like an innocent young boy. Innocent means he didn't have any experience of the sinful things that so many people had experience of. Like Prabhupada came to America, I mean, he couldn't believe how sinful people were. And that's sort of an innocence right there. I mean, Prabhupada expected devotees to always comply with their vows. The first time devotees left, didn't comply with their vows, Prabhupada was shocked. He was crying. He didn't believe it happened. After a while, Prabhupada started to understand. But at the same time, Prabhupada had a certain innocence around him, isn't it? Because he came from such a pure culture. He never ate meat his whole life. Even when his Dr. Bose tried to feed him chicken soup, you know the story. He just threw up before it got to his mouth. And so Prabhupada, it's high class, high class culture. Very high class Bengali culture. And he comes to America, and the lowest of the low. Really. I mean, New York at that time, in the Lower East Side and everything like this. So you can say that Prabhupada was rather innocent in that way. Because he came from the spiritual world, he came from high-class culture. And we weren't innocent.
When we hear from Prabhupada disciples, we understand how attached they are to their spiritual master,
Right.
Prabhupada. And through them, we are also getting to know Prabhupada.
Right.
We may read the Lilamrita, we may read Prabhupada's lectures, everything. But really speaking, we do Guru Puja every morning, we do all the things that we've heard about and we do.
Right.
How do we develop that kind of attachment for Prabhupada? I mean,
That's a good question. And I'll attempt to answer it. I think to get to know Prabhupada, because the vast majority of Prabhupada's disciples didn't really have that much personal association with Prabhupada. The vast majority were just hearing the letters, or same as you all are, reading things like that. As many, I think the vast majority, I wouldn't say they never saw Prabhupada. If they saw it, it was just like for an instant or something like that. And Prabhupada himself only saw his spiritual master 5 times, just a handful of times, Prabhupada said. It's the question of, let's talk about the Mahabharata. I feel very much connected to Arjuna in the Mahabharata. Very attached to Arjuna because I read about him, I hear about his qualities, not just the Bhagavad Gita, the whole Mahabharata. So Arjuna is my favorite person in the Mahabharata, even more than Krishna. And so he's like my role model too, Arjuna, in a certain way, not the same way as Prabhupada is. And even people in this world, they read about some hero and they become very attached to some hero that may not be on the planet anymore. So I think it's a question of hearing about Prabhupada more. For example, one of the main books that I think is neglected nowadays is the Lilamrita.
Yeah.
I like to recommend that the devotees read Lilamrita before any other books, so they can get to know Prabhupada. But it's really, people get into like advanced courses in Vaishnavism, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, but where's the Lilamrita in those courses? Isn't it? Where's the Lilamrita? It's not there, isn't it? It's not one of the required books in any of the courses ISKCON teaches. Why not? I think if you hear about Prabhupada, Lilamrita, of course you have the stories by Shruti Kirti Prabhu. These are just little vignettes. But I think more important is the Lilamrita to see how Prabhupada struggled for us. And one just develops a personal relationship. Or hearing Prabhupada, we used to, when I joined, Prabhupada was just there he wasn't there in the beginning, but every day we would hear a class, Srila Prabhupada's class, in that tape class or whatever at that time. And we would the devotees would ask questions about the class afterwards. It was hard for us to understand Prabhupada's accent in the beginning.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a challenge. Now it's, of course, easy. And so we would spend maybe 15 minutes, maybe not a whole class, but we hear from Prabhupada every day. Now, in our temple in North Carolina, we have one class of Prabhupada a week. Every Saturday, not Saturday, sorry. On Ekadashis is also Prabhupada classes. Prabhupada will give a class. And we'll have the class also, we can read it on the screen at the same. You do that here?
We do it. We have a once a month program.
Once a month.
Prabhupada
Maybe more often or something like that. And then and have readings of Prabhupada Lilamrita. I think the Lilamrita is a very important book to read. So, yeah, that's what I would say. And you get to know the person. Prabhupada person. You see the videos of Prabhupada. There's so many videos that are there of Prabhupada. So there's the whole memory series, and it's all free on the internet, on YouTube. And you could hear the devotees' remembrances of Prabhupada, and just hear what a great saint he is. I mean, just like even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I mean, that was over 500 years ago he was on the planet, but we're still developing attachment for him. And Krishna, we're still developing attachment for Krishna, isn't it? And how many years ago was Lord Nrsimhadev on the planet? Does anyone know how many years? Millions of years, something like that. Long time. And still we're very attached to him. You're all very attached to him here. So, yeah, it goes beyond the deity form. It goes to personality. You know, knowing Prabhupada, getting to know Prabhupada. I mean, basically most of what I know about Prabhupada is in the history. I mean, it's not that I saw Prabhupada millions of times like that. But it was also something the leaders would stress too.
Yeah.
You know, when I joined, you know, Prabhupada's words, Prabhupada said this, we have to do, if Prabhupada sent a letter out, we would drop everything else and do what Prabhupada said. And sometimes we were fanatic with that. One time Prabhupada sent a letter out to one temple saying the devotees should go on Sankirtan every day and just eat once a day. I don't know if you remember this. This is in Chicago. And basically leave one devotee back in the temple and take care of the temple. And devotees follow that, and then they started getting sick and just eating once a day. Because they were eating, like, I wouldn't say like pigs, but they were eating so much at one time a day to fill up for the rest of the day. And then, but that was just an instruction Prabhupada gave for one particular temple that was avoiding Sankirtan. So one has to be able to ascertain which instructions are timeless, which instructions are just like time-bound. I mean, sometimes Prabhupada would say to a sannyasi, sannyasi's business is to always travel. Other times Prabhupada would say to a sannyasi, your business is just stay here. So, you know, what is the instruction? So one has to be able to ascertain. And it's going to be a challenge when all of Prabhupada's disciples are gone. That is definitely going to be a challenge. So right now we have to integrate this Prabhupada consciousness into our society more and more. That's your business, my business, to try to do that. And yeah, I mean, it has to be, because Prabhupada is the glue that holds the rest of the society together. Otherwise, we would have the same fate as the Gaudiya Math, in which it was broken up into different guru groups. I mean, that's definitely not what Prabhupada wants. That's why I stress, you know, that we're all part of, wherever I go, I stress that we're all part of one family, no separate groups. Myself, I don't allow my disciples to have disciple meetings, as is prohibited. I'm dealing with one disciple in Australia right now who wanted to do a course, Guru Dev's Mood and Etiquette. And I said, you do not do it. You're not allowed to use my picture. You're not allowed to use my name. You can do a course in etiquette, but you use Bhakti Chumar's course. Because there's a tendency, sometimes disciples, they just want to, you know, the groupism. So I specifically trying to avoid that as much as possible, because that's going to be counterproductive to our society. That, you know, we have to stay together. That is Prabhupada's mission, and all of Prabhupada's disciples' mission is to a unified society to carry forth Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's wishes and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's wishes. It's a challenge. Yeah, it's going to be a real challenge, and it is a challenge even right now. All right.